I once heard Donald Soper say that their problem with so many Christians was that they were so wrapped up in heaven they were no earthly use. And I feel the same. If people in the Socialist Party do nothing but remove themselves from them. And an old friend of mine, who was accused of being an armchair philosopher, people who didn't know anything about him, who had been persecuted by Nazis and communists, been jailed and betrayed and crossed borders illegally, he used to say in exasperation, "My God, if I can't think these things in my armchair, what can I do?" Anyway, my favourite definition of utopia by Philip, and it's the one we should all bear in mind when we talk about planning. He has his lovely sign round the neck. In big letters it said, "Utopia." And in small letters it said, "Could be the answer to some of your problems." Let me explain.
As gentleman here, please.
Can I ask a couple of questions? One is the attitude that you both have to science and technology. Because when we're looking at competition, looking at social justice, a lot of things can be done to help our people, to help people around the world through development in science and technology. And so the question is, which is the best way to encourage competition so that people create more? Is it individual effort, or is it always doing things on a group effort? I think if you study history, it's often a bit of both. And that leads me to the second question, which is, are we listening to you both, which is extremely entertaining and enjoyable, also listening to a false dichotomy? Because maybe we should be looking at a happy mean, the social market economy, capitalism with the National Health Service, the welfare state, slightly more effective than it is at the moment, but something that brings the best of both.
I suppose that's a kind of great thing.
Some points. Just to Richard, okay, on the previous point, if I may, you've got nothing to do with Cambodia, I know that. I've got nothing to do with the Duke of Westminster. I think there's a lot of system that produces the Duke of Westminster, quite frankly. And I am like you, that I have an idea of a society in which resources are indeed drawn by the ordinary common people because it is they who are sovereign consumers, and that they have market power, and that that their demand is what causes people to produce things. And so things are produced in order to satisfy those demands, and that's, roughly speaking, my ideal of society, and I do not wish to have a society which produces monopolies, and I think that's actually more likely to happen in various kinds of socialist society than it is in a capitalist one, quite frankly. Although with our regulation, as I say, we do tend to produce more of it than we actually want, and I think that's the problem there, is not that we have too little government, but that we have too much. So I think you and I probably are both on the small government side. But it seems to me that when you have common ownership, you have to decide how those means of production, whatever it is that you're talking about, who is it that decides how they are actually used and deployed? We're talking about very complicated decisions here. As President Mack said, it's a big world. There are hundreds and thousands of different possibilities for production. You can produce hundreds and thousands of different things in hundreds and thousands of different ways. It's a very complicated system. You can't just plug it into a computer and say this is the ideal arrangement of goods and this is the ideal arrangement of how to produce them. You don't know. And that's why you need this evolutionary system. You need a system in which people try different ideas, and some succeed and some fail. And you do more of the things that succeed and less of the things that fail. And that is fundamentally a market system. So that's the system which I want. Turning to your specific point, science and technology, I have the faintest idea is the answer to the question, because I don't know enough about it. But it seems to me that competitive systems are generally better at driving people forward, and it is this evolutionary sort of process that it's not like a game where there's a fixed pie and somebody's got to lose in order that somebody else has the pie. What you're trying to do is grow the pie, and you grow the pie through through that competitive process. And it is like evolution. You carry on and you get bigger and better and all the rest of it. And it seems to me that that's probably as true in science and technology as anything else. Science has got to have some purpose to it, and often it's driven by the needs of business who support scientific research. I think that's altogether credible. In terms of the false dichotomy thing, sorry, I'm going on. In terms of the false dichotomy thing, no, I think there's a real choice here. I think you have one or the other. I look at China and I look at India, right? And they're both marching ahead. They're embracing capitalist ideas and market economy and trade and competition and all of these things. Which is going to succeed? I'll tell you which will succeed. China will succeed because they've got. What's going to happen in India is as soon as people get a little bit of wealth, everyone's going to get together and decide how to carve it up. And you're going to have a democratic system, you're going to have a welfare state, and then the whole thing will come to a screeching halt. We've seen that happen before, whereas China will just carry on. So no, I think I think the problem with the sort of social democratic thing is that you get drawn into actually more and more socialism, just by the democratic nature of it. People vote for big spending governments and low taxes, and that's it. So I don't think that's a real option. It's what we've got, I'm afraid. It's not sustainable.
Okay, I shall try and answer your 2 points directly. First of all, what you suggest about the sort of amalgam mixture, it's very nice. We've got terms for that. We call it gradualism, we call it transitionalism. Sometimes we're feeling mean, we call it compromise. I'm afraid at my time of life, I ain't into that ball game. I have to say what I have to say because I'm looking for change, beyond the change, beyond the change, beyond the change. Not what we've got now, and what we can fiddle about. You can fiddle about with the mechanisms of capitalism and production all you like, but the bottom line is it will remain like a broken engine, unworkable. Very important question on science, and one I've often pondered myself. Most people believe that we socialists live in a world of woolly jumpers and sandals and beards, and we communicate by thought processes. Ain't true. Apart from the Socialist Standard and Private Eye, the only magazine I took regularly was the Scientific American. And I often used to get up at Socialist Party conferences and say to them, look, what we're putting on here, you're making a statement, be like the Scientific American. Does consciousness have a physical basis? Question mark. And you turn the pages and there's 12 different views. That's what I love. And in science, that's very exciting. Science has got such wonderful things to bring to us. But we have the same problem there. Did you know? I used to be a bit of an expert on nuclear business and wars and things. Did you know that the Heritage Foundation and others who finance laser research, unless you had something that was applicable to military use, you would not get a job. That was the reality of that situation. People working in America on lasers. Unfortunately, that goes through science. There are scientists who have tried to break that down, to break those vested interests. And it's a nice point. What gets the most out of science? Two people working independently on fantastic ideas, and then some, or perhaps cooperating with their ideas. But would that nullify that drive, that independence? There is a place for competition of a kind, of individuality, not competition, of individuality and striving. I should make that point again at the end. It is a great question, it is a great dilemma. Science can change the world and revolutionise it. By the way, as for the problem of worldwide decisions, we don't seem to have a problem every year in people worldwide voting for the worst song ever written. So I don't think that in the future it might be such a problem as we imagine.
Science now, I suppose GM crops we hear and more about, but